Thinking about taking your real estate exam? Well, you're in the right place. Because on today's convo, I talked to Stu Jacobson. Stu has helped thousands of people pass the real estate exam. And make sure you stay until the end, where you can see how one student who thought he had no shot at passing actually passed the exam. Are you ready? Let's go. Hey everybody, and welcome to Simple Real Estate Success. Today we have a very, very special guest with us today. It's Mr. Stu Jacobson. Stu, how you doing, man?
I'm doing awesome. How about yourself, Doug?
All right. I'm doing great, man. I'm ready to get started and have people learn a little bit more about real estate and what it takes to get into the business. So I invited Stu to come and join us today. And Stu, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I have over 13 years teaching experience. I'm actually one of the top tutors across the country. I helped thousands of people last year from my YouTube channel to one-on-one tutoring to help them pass the exam in every state. I also have a great Facebook community. Then you can find links to that in any of my videos that I have out there. But we offer a lot of stuff for people depending on what they need to figure out how to get into the business and how to get over that hurdle of passing the exam.
Thanks, Stu. This is exactly why I have you on the show today, just so we can get together and talk about what it takes to get into the real estate business. Now, why do people even want to get into this business at all? You know what I mean?
There's a ton of reasons why people get into it. I think one of the important things to understand is that there's so many different things that you could do in real estate. They're attracted to the business for one reason or another. Money, HGTV, something like that, So there's a ton of reasons why people get into it.
What did you do prior to getting into real estate?
I was in retail sales, and I found that I liked sales. I liked working with people, and real estate was a way for me to make a career and raise a family on it and have a business. This would be my 18th year actually in the business, and there's been a lot of ups and downs too. I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say that I've sat down, cried, and ate off the dollar menu and been like, all right, how am I going to pay rent
today? Right. No, exactly. How do I know if real estate is the right career for me?
I think that people should get into real estate. They see that potential for whatever it is they're looking to have as that future promise to themselves in their career, that real estate is the answer to that. And here's the thing. I mean, if you're watching this video and you're listening to what we're saying, you need to pause it and write down your why, your goals, and what your future promise is going to be and how real estate fits that.
I wanted to get in real estate years and years ago, but I wasn't quite brave enough. I was married and I had 3 kids, and it was a little risky. Do you get into real estate? Yeah. I'm afraid of it. I don't want to step out because my family was there. I had to support my family. That was number one to me and still is number one to me. And so I didn't step out and do it initially until I got the opportunity later on in life as I worked in a career that I hated. Actually, my last company I hated. The career I did, and I was a production planner, and I did this for a long time. And I got to admit, Stu, I was mediocre at best. That's the truth. If I give myself a C, maybe a C plus. I brought it to it, but I did it for a long time for the money.
Yeah.
Right. But once I got an opportunity to get into real estate, I took my exam. It just felt so natural to me. It felt so good, and it's been nothing but success ever since then.
And I know a lot of people who get into real estate, we're in a similar situation to yourself where there's a high risk, a high potential of, if I fail and I do not make money, there are real world consequences. I realized that I had the luxury of not having a plan, not worrying about supporting a family. Basically the bar was set so low. I ended my first year making money and I was like, I'm a rock star. And that's why I am going to say that and use that to prop up the importance of having a goal. Like if you do not have a goal and you do not have planning and you do not have structure, then you are absolutely setting yourself up to fail.
You have to plan this out. You have to decide on what you're going to do. You have to decide on when you're going to do it, what education you need to get started. Speaking of education, I want to talk about the exam for a second. Where did you take your exam?
I took my exam at a PSI testing center in New Jersey. I didn't know what that they would be taking a picture of me, and actually being 19, it was the same day as my then girlfriend's prom. Because there's a picture of me in Trenton somewhere, me in a tuxedo passing the real estate
Wow.
exam. So
That's
if that was
hilarious,
a
dude.
whole head of hair, I think the whole entire testing center was laughing the whole time that I was taking the picture.
Oh,
Um,
man.
the exam is hard. That's why people hire me for private tutoring. They go on my YouTube channel. The more likelihood is that most people do fail the exam at least once. You have a 60% chance of failing that test. So
That's a
what
pretty
you
big
want to do,
number. Going and
it
taking a
is a
test and knowing that, you know, over half the people are not going to even pass it the first time around.
and there's a reason for that. The reason for that is because the people don't, number one, plan, and they don't understand what the test is. The test is structured as reading comprehension. So you're talking about people who are kind of like yourself, where you're taking it later in life. You probably hadn't at the time taken a test in a long time.
Oh, yeah.
So what happens is it's brand new material that's what I would refer to as obtuse, dry, boring stuff. You're probably more than likely going to fail. However, if you do plan for it, speak with someone like myself prior to it, get involved in the Facebook community, you'll learn some of the tips and tricks that we use to help people not take it 19 times and, pass.
Yeah, exactly. I remember when I took my exam, I think it was a 6 weeks long, I believe. And the first 4 week was fine. I did great in the class, but suddenly I got the flu. I
Oh
was
no.
so sick. I mean, late, I had to take the entire class again. And
Oh no.
so I actually took the class online and in person. And I was so excited. Once I got done that class, I was ready to go take the exam immediately before I forgot anything. But I did pass the first time. So
And that's listen, that's always the goal. Look, I don't say those things like, hey, there's a 60% chance of you failing to sit there and go, oh, go in there and plan to fail. No, 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 no. Set the expectations right, and so like I said, if you do know going into it, hey, this is a reading comprehension test and it's covering dry material, it definitely is something that you could overcome. So,
right. Now
I'm glad that you passed first time.
I took both versions. I took it in classroom and I took it, online. Is there any preferred method or one that works better than the other, live versus, taking an online course?
It's a great question, and I think it really goes down to the student. One person might be more of a visual learner. Someone might be more of an audio learner. You might have one student who says, "Oh my God, the online class was great. It was perfect for me. I was able to do it at my own pace." And then you might have someone that says, "I didn't get anything out of the online class." And that's why we work with video, audio, hands-on stuff.
Right.
So when we do it, we kind of tailor it to the student. If you're in the classroom and you're not understanding the material, or
Hmm.
you're having a hard time when you're studying at home, there are ways that you can be helped. Is I think that going into it, knowing that you will probably be supplementing your learning, that's a key to being successful, whether you're taking it in person or online.
Mhm. Just to be clear, you don't offer those like 60 hours of required classes. That's not your thing. You are really giving
So
that
I
supplemental training.
so I do that in my home state of New Jersey.
Ah, okay.
So if you're watching this and you're in New Jersey, I have a school. A bulk of my business that I do every day is helping my community, which is much larger. I have a large following on YouTube, in
Right.
Facebook, and I work with a lot of different resource providers to provide them with webinars and things of that nature. So there's a lot of ways that you can
Mhm.
interact with me and consume the material that I have to give.
So let's break it down even further. So let's just talk about the
Yeah.
steps. So just to make it crystal clear, I don't want anybody to walk away from this and not know the steps. Let's say, hey, I've dug into my why and I really know that this is the place I want to go. What is the
Yep.
very first thing that I need to do?
Find a school. You need to find a school and make a decision. I would also not make it a decision that hinders on whether you want to do it online or in person. In New Jersey, it's 75 hours, 150 hours if you want to get a broker's license. So every state has their own kind of things. So you have to pick a school, pick it, get out of the way, and don't worry about the modality of how you're going to be learning. So that's
Right. So
step one.
perfect. Pick a school, and then I assume we want to get some supplemental learning just and make sure that they learn enough so that they can pass it as early. They don't want to be in that lower 60% of the folks that fail. So in
No.
order to make sure that they have confidence going in so that they can pass, I'm going to suggest that you check out Stu and some of this, his tools and classes that he offers, even the one-on-one coaching, so we can help you get to that exam so you can be in that upper echelon, that group of folks that's going to pass the exam the first time around.
Yeah. And maybe also find a study group, because I find that students too like finding other people who were studying for the exam so that they could ask them, hey, what did you experience? What was it like? What are some tips and tricks? Because I think that people don't seek out the tips and tricks portion like early enough. A common thing that I see is that people say, man, I wish I knew about you sooner. You know, I wish I knew you existed when I first started taking my class so I could better plan. So that's the thing that you should be doing. I was talking to a psychologist about multiple choice tests,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And they said to me, they said, never change your answers because your first instinct is always the best
Oh
instinct.
yeah, I've
And I
heard
said
that.
to him,
Sure.
I said, time out, wait a minute, wait a minute. I said, I've been engaged twice. I've had 17 girlfriends. I said, my first choice and my initial instinct is usually not the best. And and what I learned is this. I actually, and he said to me, he said, well, let me rephrase that. Let me explain it to you a little bit better. What happens is actually the in a multiple choice question, what happens is you approach the question completely differently once you've chosen an answer versus when you have not committed to an answer. And here's the thing. That's like a little bit of what I have studied, what I've learned. So that's a
Mhm.
reason why you want to be interacting with someone like me so I can explain these things to you and give you those
Right.
test taking tips, those skills like that.
Speaking of the test, so what is it like when
Yeah.
you walk into the room? I know what it's like here in Maryland. What's it like in New Jersey when you walk in to take a test?
So every single testing center is different. You're probably going to get a grumpy, crotchety curmudgeon of a proctor. Okay. Look, and if you get a nice proctor, like look at that as a blessing,
Yeah.
right? So prepare for a crotchety curmudgeon who's going to make you as uncomfortable as humanly possible. So here's what I always tell my students. I say, you will more than likely be flustered by the time you sit down to take the test. So what you want to do is you want to try to reduce your anxiety, reduce your stress, and when you walk into that testing center, they're going to be asking you a lot of questions, and be prepared for the fact that there might be certain situations that your instructor didn't even prepare you for. But I would also say be overly prepared. Make sure you have several forms of ID. You have any kind of certificates that you might need. Ask, and here's the thing, this is another reason why you should be in the Facebook groups and you should be communicating with other students,
Hmm.
because what happens is some of those questions, like you just asked, what's it like? I wouldn't have that best information, even for my own home state of New Jersey, but other students who've taken the test like last week, they would know.
Absolutely. Love that community feel so you can get that information live,
Exactly.
what's happening real time in the world. So I remember you, but I think in Maryland must be the same because I had this crotchety proctor that was there, right? It's like I never heard that story before, but that's exactly
Yeah.
what it was. I walked in, I was nervous as all get out. I remember taking the exam. It was on a computer,
Yeah.
took all the exam. And then in Maryland, it's broke up in two pieces. There's a national exam and the local exam. Is that the same in New
Yep.
Jersey?
So no, we take a combo test in New Jersey, but what I will tell you is every state is different. So in New Jersey, they do have a national section and a state section. They just combine it.
Oh, they combine it in
Um,
Maryland too. That's correct. So it's actually the same. Okay.
yeah. So certain states they do separate them down
Yeah.
to where you can actually pass and fail on each one.
All right, so make sure you check your local laws and what the rules are in your state to
Yep.
find out exactly how that works. And I just remember this anxiety when I went in there and I hit the last question, and then it actually pops up on the screen. It flashes whether you passed or not, and it flashed up that I passed. And I just remember my heart thumping the whole time, waiting for that thing to pop up that said that I did pass. And I, phew. And I'm thinking to myself,
Yeah.
I don't even know because some of the questions can be a little tricky.
And you know what? I always say this: the questions are seemingly tricky, but also what happens too, and this is something I coach my students on, is the questions are self-containing.
Mhm.
So a lot of people, a lot of times, if you come in with the mentality of the questions are tricky, you're going to look at every question like that. And I always say there's actually a sign above my desk in my real estate school that says "Stupid people pass the test." Um, and and I think you'll attest to this too. I'm sure there have been times in your real estate career. I know there's times in mine where I sat there and I go, "Oh dear God, how'd they get past that test?"
Oh, and the thing is, I see it so much. I've seen students that I've had that I've trained. These are people that have had 5, 10 years experience, and they come in, and I'm like, what?
You
When
clutch the
you
pearls, and you clutch the pearls. One of my favorite lines ever. Listen, listen.
exactly.
There was someone who said something to me, and they made a point, and then they followed it up with, "I've been doing this for 25
Oh,
years."
that is the
And
worst sentence.
so you ready for what? You ready for what I said to them? I said, "Well, if you've been doing something wrong for 25 years, that doesn't all of a sudden make it
Gotta love it. Gotta love it.
right."
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's if you're going into the test and you're saying every question is tricky, the questions are so tricky. Oh my gosh,
Mhm.
they're so tricky. You're going to get a question like, "What color is the black cat?" And you're going to go, "Ha ha, you're not getting me today." You
Yeah,
can answer
exactly.
orange. And,
Yeah.
like I said, the stupid person who's going to get their license before you is going to sit there and go, "The black hat's black." They're not
Yeah.
overthinking it. They're not doing anything like that. So, yeah, the questions are seemingly tricky, but easier if you understand and realize that there's really not much else you have to add to them.
Okay. That sounds great. I can remember when I took the class, the live class anyway, there was a bunch of people in the room with me, and they were so concerned with the math. The math was
Mm.
really tricky. Real estate math was just one of those things that just stumped. I mean, I can remember sitting there because I got it like early, and I don't. And the thing is, I was not that great in math in school. I remember
No.
I almost got kicked out of my 11th grade algebra class by my teacher. He was so mad at me, he actually threw my books on the floor. But apparently, I learned something because I actually think algebraically when I'm doing math.
Listen,
But
listen, listen. I'll tell you, I wasn't the best math student either. When I was in high school, actually, my math teacher my senior year called up my mother and said, "Mrs. Jacobson, Stewart has a D minus. He just needs a D plus to get his diploma." So my mother said, "Well, what could he do? Was there anything he could do?" And the teacher said, "He could bring his textbook to class." And so my mother said to me, she said, "Stewie, why can't you bring your textbook to class?" I said, "Well, the redhead behind me brings her textbook to class every day, and I get to share with her."
Hi, Stu.
I'm not the math wizard when it comes
yeah,
to
me
this.
either. So wait a minute. You got two non-math wizards here that were able to pass this exam. There's hope for you
Yeah,
guys.
and that goes to one of the people that I work with is actually prep agent, and for anyone who's looking for to pass their exam, he's probably the largest real estate exam prep
Hmm.
on YouTube. So a lot of people who watch my videos watch his videos, and what's funny is I actually work with him, so I create a lot of his content. As prep agent Joe always says this to me whenever I'm speaking with him: "You do not need math to pass the exam." So for anyone who is stressed about math or is concerned about math, what I will tell you is you do not need math to pass the exam. And the reason why it's so hard for a lot of people, the math itself isn't difficult. The math
Hmm.
itself is not a difficult thing. What is difficult is that you're trying to put new concepts or new formulas up against the base knowledge of learning. Like if I told you what joint tenancy was and you never knew what it was before in your entire life, you never heard of it, it's very easy for you to basically put into your head what this concept is, what this
Hmm.
theory is. When you're sitting there and you're saying, "Here's a math formula, here's a math word problem, how are you going to solve for it?" Your brain wants to do something. And for anyone who's watching who has had a child who has tried to understand Common Core, and you can't understand why your child could understand Common Core and you cannot, that is exactly what we're dealing with right now. That seems so crazy to go about solving that problem that way, because my way is so much easier. But what happens is it's just they come to it with an empty cup, and
Right.
it's so much easier to fill it. Whatever they fill it with, basically, that's what it is. That's what they know. They don't know
Right.
anything else. What I say with math is this: have patience. I always suggest watching videos. And on my YouTube channel, I offer 2 hour, 3 hour videos on math. So you could actually sit there, pause, focus on things.
So the first step that we're going to do is this. We're going to multiply the 6 acres by 43,560 because we want to convert everything into square feet. Here's the thing.
If it's not coming to you, don't worry about it. If it is coming to you and you could easily understand a couple of the concepts, I think that there's a couple of important ones, and I outline them in my videos as to what you should know and what you shouldn't know. So that's
Right.
something also, too. that a private tutoring session, if math is something that you're really hooked up on and you really want to try to conquer it, we could definitely talk about it in private tutoring sessions.
Absolutely. So what I'm really getting out of this, Stu, is that with the proper prep, you can actually pass this exam and you can go in with it a lot more stress-free. You don't have to worry about it so much because
Yeah.
you're going in prepared. And just like everything else in life, if you're prepared for it, it actually feels easy. The goal is for this exam to feel easy to you. And that's what we're after.
Yeah.
And also, in the event that you don't pass the exam, you can take it again, right, Stu?
I mean, yeah, you can take it again. You can take it multiple times. You can have more sessions. I'll tell you a real quick story about a student of mine that I helped pass the exam. He took several private lessons with me, and he came to me his first lesson. He goes, "Stu, I'm stupid as a box of rocks." He said, "I'm going to fail by 20 points. I said, "David, you're not going to fail by 20 points. He said, "Listen," he said, "just get me close." So we worked and we worked and we worked, and we had like 2 or 3 sessions.
Right.
And the Saturday came, and I usually get a lot of emails from my students. "Stu, I passed. Stu, I passed. They did great." I get a text message. "Stu, you'll never believe this. I'm so happy." I was like, "David, what? You passed?" He goes, "I failed by 1 point." He was, I mean, you would think
Mission
he won the
accomplished.
World Series. He goes, "I failed by 1 point." He said, "I was wrong about myself." He said, "I'm not as dumb as a box of rocks." He said, "Maybe I'm as dumb as 1 rock." He said, "But I'm going to do this." He said, "There's a chance." He took it 2 more times. He passed.
What I love about that story, Stu, is that he said, "I'm going to just get me close." Well, you got him there.
That was it.
Mission
That
completed.
That was it. I mean, it was funny. I've never had someone so happy to fail the exam. I mean, but again, it all goes to planning and prepping,
Right.
his understanding, his studying, the way that the school was set up. Like, he knew that. So like, he was basically like, "Hey, show me a light at the end of the tunnel." And it was
Right.
so much fun to work with him. I really, one of the most rewarding things that I did this past year. It was great. It was fantastic.
Awesome. Awesome. Let's say you just passed your exam. Yes. What can I expect now? Click on this link if you want to find out what happens next right after you pass that exam. Also, check out the links below where you can connect with Stu and see more of his content.